Congress now questioning Merrick Garland over his decision to appoint the failed prosecutor called David Weiss to special counsel. How does a prosecutor who botches the entire plea deal for Hunter Biden get a promotion? Well, if you're in Biden's America, that's what obviously makes sense. Congress is not happy about it. They sent a letter, Jim Jordan, James Comer, and the Ways and Means Committee over to Merrick Garland, who is the U.S. Department of Justice Attorney General, demanding to know why he made this bonehead decision. Then we'll hear from Gary Shapley, who promises us more is coming forward. We're just getting started on what is happening. So this is the letter from Congress. You see drafted August 28th, going over to Merrick Garland, signed by our friends Jim Jordan, Jason Smith, and James Comer from Congress, three heavy hitters who've been on this investigation for quite some time. They say, Dear Honorable Merrick Garland, Attorney General, U.S. Department of Justice. They say, hey, Merrick, our committee's Judiciary Ways Oversight, we're continuing our oversight and we're questioning your commitment to impartial justice and the truth of the statements that were made in response to our questions about old Hunter. Congress says on August 11th, the department and apparently their unprecedented plea deal with Hunter fell apart after a federal judge looked at it. After that happened, you appointed David Weiss as special counsel over the matter that he just botched. Your appointment, Mayor, raises numerous concerns considering earlier statements from you and Weiss saying that Weiss already had the, quote, ultimate authority free of any political pressure to pursue the investigation where, when, and how he saw fit. Now, recently reported info raises additional concerns about the DOJ's unusual actions in this matter. And it suggests, Merrick, that the department under your leadership has been attempting to circumvent the rule of law in favor of Hunter, Biden, President Biden, and the Biden family. So given the extremely serious nature of these issues, our committees in Congress expect unfettered cooperation with our oversight from both you and the department. We'll see if they get it. So Congress says the department deviated substantially from ordinary course. Since the early days, the DOJ has deviated from its standard procedure. Whistleblowers, for example, tipped off Hunter Biden's lawyers about the storage unit search. The DOJ also allowed the statute of limitations to elapse for 2014-2015 charges, including felony tax evasion, filing a false or fraudulent tax return for 2014. And this is in spite of Hunter's lawyers' willingness to consent to an extension of the statute of limitations. Hey, we'll extend it so that you can prosecute us if you need to. Biden's Department of Justice just let it expire. These deviations took place while Mr. Weiss, with the full support of the department, oversaw Hunter Biden's investigation as U.S. attorney prior to receiving special counsel status. Whistleblowers who actively worked on the investigation have identified other deviations that are not normal. For example, the tax division suggested removing Hunter's name from the documents, including subpoenas. FBI headquarters tried to stop Hunter Biden interviews during the transition after Biden allegedly won, and Secret Service agents got a heads up. They never actually got to interview Hunter. That's not normal. Prosecutors at the office in Delaware prohibited the IRS or FBI investigators from even asking about or referring to the big guy or dad in witness interviews. Can't even mention Joe. Prosecutors at the Delaware U.S. Attorney's offices limited the number and the substance of interviews that they could conduct. IRS investigators were excluded from meetings with the defense lawyers. Prosecutors withheld a tax division charging memo about Hunter from the IRS investigative team. So the lawyers are hiding it from the investigators. The prosecutors and the tax prosecutors slow walked search warrants, and they instituted unnecessary approval processes to slow roll any requests that came in. Prosecutors also refused requests to follow up on incriminating WhatsApp messages between Hunter and representatives of Chinese companies. That's the "I'm sitting here with my daddy" message. All of these and numerous other deviations were the result of actions by the DOJ, and they occurred when Mr. Weiss, per your own admission, supervised the investigation. We also saw an unprecedented plea deal. In May 2023, around the time that the whistleblowers first talked to Congress about irregularities, we know that Hunter's lawyer, Chris Clark, and others began formally negotiating about a deal. So they just, they came up with the deal last minute. May 2023, whistleblowers stand up. Hey, we're blowing the whistle. They freak out. We better get this thing done. Weiss Deputy Attorney General Bradley Weisenheimer began formally negotiating with Hunter's team. Negotiations came to an agreement very quickly, June 20th, 2023. However, according to recent public reporting, Mr. Clark, Hunter's lawyers, began pressing the department to settle in spring 2022. Hunter's lawyer threatened prosecutors in the department that they would face career suicide if they pursued the investigation. You understand? Hunter's daddy guilty is the president. Hunter's lawyer says that two other DOJ officials, career suicide if you even think about prosecuting the president's son. You have to be an idiot to do it. He asked for a meeting with people at the highest levels of the department. He threatened to call President Biden to testify. Clark went so far as to tell prosecutors that they would be creating a constitutional crisis by pitting the president against the department he runs. They only care about that stuff if it's their guy. They don't care if they create a constitutional crisis at the expense of anybody else. The deal reached by Hunter's team and David Weiss, the so-called prosecutor, who is supposed to prosecute people, not cut deals for them, would have had Hunter plead guilty to 2 misdemeanor tax charges plus a felony gun diversion charge, meaning it would eventually go away. The unconventional agreement shifted broad immunity to benefit Hunter Biden with the aim of preventing the court from even being able to scrutinize the immunity provision. They hid it in an agreement that the court didn't review or shouldn't review. It also gave the district court the sole power to determine whether they breached it. Prosecutors could cite no precedent for anything like this happening ever. In July, under scrutiny from a judge, it became apparent that the parties did not agree whether this document would shield Hunter. At the conclusion of the hearing, the judge expressed discomfort with the structure of the plea deal. The judge ultimately concluded, can't accept it. The department later dismissed these proceedings, then announced Weiss was appointed. So with all of this, with this failed proceeding, with this botched, corrupt prosecution, why did they appoint David Weiss? Congress says, hey, Merrick, it's not clear why you have only now, after the investigation has been going on for 5 years, opted to appoint Mr. Weiss as special counsel, especially after you represented that he already had ultimate authority. The only explanation you offered is that, quote, extraordinary circumstances now require the appointment. But the order also lacks any meaningful explanation. The department regulations, Merrick, as you know, require that you appoint special counsel with the following: with a reputation for integrity and impartial decision-making, with the appropriate experience to ensure the investigation will be conducted ably, expeditiously, and thoroughly. The regulations say you got to find somebody like that. But Mr. Weiss's conduct in this matter, overseeing an investigation that deviated from normal procedures, involving an unusual plea deal that disintegrated under judicial scrutiny, it calls into question Weiss's decision-making. Why did he allow that to happen? In addition, recent news reports indicate that Mr. Weiss, the prosecutor, so-called, had a close personal relationship with Mr. Biden's deceased brother, Beau, further undermining his impartiality. Isn't that curious? Footnote 35. What is that referencing? Hang on a second. What is that referencing? 33 is the headline. Okay. So 33, Washington Post article, August 20th, 2023. Before investigating Hunter, prosecutor worked with brother Beau. So isn't that fun? Isn't that interesting? That's why they kept David Weiss around. That's why they kept saying Trump appointed prosecutor, is because he worked with Beau Biden. That's why he's been there. Additionally, your appointment of Mr. Weiss as special counsel suggests that previous statements made by you and Mr. Weiss about Mr. Weiss's authority were misleading or untruthful, lying. On March 1st, Merrick, you told the Senate that Mr. Weiss has full authority to bring cases in other jurisdictions if he feels it's necessary. But if that were true, then there would be no reason now to appoint Mr. Weiss to be the special counsel and to authorize him to prosecute federal crimes. If he had that ability then, why did you give it to him now? Weiss also changed his story several times. On June 23rd, Weiss wrote to the judiciary. He said, I've been granted ultimate authority over this matter. I can decide where, when, and whether to file charges. Not true. June 30th, Mr. Weiss changed his tune, claiming my charging authority is geographically limited to my home district. Wait, what? If venue for a case lies elsewhere, common practice is to contact the other U.S. attorneys, and if I can't get permission, which he didn't get, I may request special attorney status. So the Congress say to Merrick, they say, department pulled punches in this investigation. They handicapped veteran investigators, and they prevented them from freely pursuing the facts. The DOJ agreed to an unprecedented plea deal after his lawyer threatened to call his daddy as a witness. Now you have appointed a special counsel as an individual who oversaw all of these irregularities, and for the past 2 months claiming he didn't even need it. He's responsible for the collapsed plea deal, something viewed as an embarrassment for your department. It is. In light of Weiss's record leading this investigation, we have concerns about his appointment. So to advance our job as legislators, here's what we need from you, Merrick. All documents and communications referring to David Weiss's appointment as special counsel, any additional scope memoranda, directives, or instructions from the office relating to Weiss's appointment, please provide these no later than September 11th. The Supreme Court has found that we may examine any matter at any time with our broad and indispensable indispensable power. Thank you for your prompt attention to this matter, Merrick. Signed, sincerely, your friends, Jim Jordan, James Comer, Jason Smith, over from Congress. So certainly very good questions. And you see just how corrupt this whole thing was. They just started to accelerate the plea deal when the smoke started to emerge, and they tried to cover it up. But there is going to be more that is revealed. We know there are 5,400 letters now, apparently, with Joe Biden's fake name on it. And Gary Shapley says there's going to be more people who are speaking out about this stuff in time. This is IRS whistleblower Gary Shapley.
Right?
That's right, Maria. I was in that room, and it was so important I asked him to repeat it. There are witnesses in that room that I have provided their names to. They've received subpoenas now because they were unwilling to cooperate voluntarily. And that's what I'm asking for. I'm asking for to bring as many people forward that have information about this so that it's not just me sitting there. It's not just Special Agent Ziegler sitting there telling you what happened. But that's why I documented that meeting that day, October 7th, 2022. I sent the email to executives over me, one of which was there, and they corroborated that that's exactly what happened during that meeting.
So what are your thoughts in terms of what went down? And what about David Weiss being special prosecutor now, special counsel?
Well, to answer your question about David Weiss being special counsel, you just have to look at what he allowed to occur during this investigation. There are key witnesses we weren't allowed to interview, that we weren't allowed to ask all the questions of certain people we interviewed. People were tipped off that we were coming before the day of action. There were enforcement operations, to include search warrants, where a probable cause was agreed to by the prosecutors that weren't allowed to happen. And then you look, he played his cards. Now moving through to his letters to Congress, through Attorney General Garland's testimony in front of Congress, that it is not accurate what they said. And and part of it is DOJ will continually say their first talking point is a Trump-appointed U.S. attorney is in charge of this case. That's not what happened. In March of 2022. David Weiss and the prosecutors went to D.C. U.S. Attorney's Office. President Biden appointed U.S. Attorney. He turned them down. Weiss confirmed that October 7th, 2022. Again, in September, he went to the President Biden appointed U.S. Attorney in California. They turned him down. And then the information that was released last weekend, which is very important, it shows that Weiss was even considering not charging in January after those two President Biden appointed U.S. attorneys declined to bring charges there.
Right.
So, it's just, it requires people to come in and to testify and for Congress to get to the bottom of this.
I want to know what you're looking for in terms of what you want to hear, corroboration, because I find it odd that as an IRS investigator, you can prosecute taxes not being paid on income, but you're not investigating where the income actually came from. I want to get your take on what you saw in all of that Hunter Biden tax return information. And we're talking with Gary Shapley.
All right, so that's an interesting exchange. Shapley obviously very frustrated that his former colleagues are lying through their teeth at all of us. And we're learning more about this. I know that it's a slow motion event, but I think that as more stones become unturned, more evidence will come out, and they're going to have a very difficult time denying it.